Joining me is a gentleman who's had a wonderful career in harness racing on both sides of the fence. Firstly, as a trainer-driver, and then secondly with Harness Racing New South Wales in their handicapping department. It's been a long time in between drinks for John Ponsonby, but it's great to see him back in harness. Well, John, as I said in the intro, great to see you back in harness and back as a winner after such a long absence.
Yeah, it was very satisfying, Mick. 35 years since I'd last trained a horse, and to produce one first up and be a winner was very satisfying, yeah.
The name God Bless You, how did that come about?
Oh, Mick, most people would know that I try and encapsulate the Christian values in my life, and we just thought it was an appropriate name for this little fella. He's definitely had the Lord riding on his shoulders, I think. When he won first up, we're very, very taken with that, yeah. It means a lot to us.
And John, you're not just back in harness racing solely as a trainer, you're also going through the process now to get your driver's licence back.
Yeah, I've had 3 trial drives. It's a bit insidious that I've got to have 20 trial drives, in my opinion, but that's the rules, and it takes no notice of your prior experience. But yeah, I'm pretty fit, and I always enjoyed driving, and to be perfectly truthful, I hate having to put someone else on, especially when they win, Mick. There's no glory standing on the sidelines.
Well, John, there's no doubt you did enjoy plenty of glory during those great years of harness racing at Harold Park, in particular with Sunset Candios, Shane Garry.
Yeah, it was halcyon days. It was tremendous to be around as a young bloke in those days. I was only fairly young, about 25, and it was just incredible to be around horses like Parface and Honda Grattan and Welcome Advice, all those great champions, Just Too Good, all those great champions, to see those horses race, and then to be racing on the same circuit as those, and having the small amount of success that I had. I was very indebted to some of the great trainers like Kevin Robinson and Kevin Newman, who were very, very helpful to me, Joe Ilsley. All were keen to impart their knowledge to someone who was interested, and I sucked it up like a sponge, I've got to say, and I had my successes. Sunset Candios was a nice horse that I'd purchased. He went on to run third in an Dominion in Alexander Park, and then Shane Garry was a nice horse. He won about 16 at Harold Park, but his main claim to fame was he won 10 in a row at one stage in one season, and that was the record in those days, and he beat Gundry Flyer doing it. He was the first horse to come from behind Gundry Flyer and outsprint him. He was a lovely little horse, and a beautiful natured little horse. He was a colt and a lovely natured horse. Girl's Choice was a lovely mare. She won quite a few at Harold Park, and they were it was just great to compete. You couldn't wait to get to Harold Park to compete against those guys. Vic Frost and all those. They were hard blokes to beat, and when you beat them, you went home thinking to yourself, well, you'd achieved something, and I found that very gratifying. I never worked a big team. I only ever had 8 horses in work, and at one stage there, I remember an owner who owned a horse called Runwick, Stephen Flick, came and one Saturday morning to have a look at his horse. I got Runwick after Laurie Moles died, and anyway, Stephen said, "Oh, gee, you've got some nice horses." I had 7 out of the 8 horses had all won their last start at Harold Park. And they weren't all champions, or good horses. I never had a champion, but they were nice horses, and they'd paid their way. And he said, "Oh, you're so lucky." And I thought, "Yeah, I'm really lucky, Stephen. It's only taken me about 10 years of a lot of weeding out to get to this stage to have that quality of horse." But that's what I tried to work with, was quality of horse, and look after them individually, and it was successful for me.
And that success, John, would have been more enhanced by the fact you've mentioned some of the great names. There would have been no easy races to win when you're driving against those type of blokes.
No, you had to have their skills and their abilities, and that was hard for a young bloke in those days, because there was no junior driving claims or anything like that in those days. And I laugh now when horses drift off the rails here at Menangle. there was a rule at Harold Park: if you drove one at Harold Park and let it drift off the rails and something got up the inside, you didn't get another drive. It was as simple as that. And they were pretty harsh teachers. They'd knock you down and then tell you why they knocked you down and what you could do to avoid it. And great times, absolutely great times. I just enjoyed it so much, and it was just really the time in harness racing, in my opinion. Yeah.
You also would have enjoyed the association with Rangy Bill.
Yeah, Rangy Bill. I only had 2 drives on her, but I did win off 48 yards behind in a Kissing Cup one night at Harold Park, and she only won by a lip, but she won, and she was a tiny little thing, and I'm fairly tall, and it looked pretty silly, me crouched over in the sulky trying to break the wind, so I didn't stop her, but she won off 48 yards behind, and it's a race, an interesting race. It went an actual race record in the race, and she was a great little mare, but she had many drivers besides me, Michael, and probably a lot better than me too. But I was lucky. I drove her the night that she, in my opinion, one of her best performances to win off 48 yards behind was a great effort in a handicap. Yeah.
And she was such a great favourite at Harold Park. She had a cold following, so it would have been marvellous to return on her successfully in front of that crowd.
It was in those days. There was an old saying: if you drove a favourite and got beat, you pulled up well before the ledger, because they'd throw cans at you, and they actually would. But if you won, you'd go right round to the end of the back straight and pull up, and you'd doff your cap, and then you'd come back to scale. And it really meant something in those days to win a race. And yes, you did doff your cap and to the crowd, and there was a crowd there. They were as I say, the halcyon days of harness racing. It was just tremendous thrill. And it's sad to see that we don't get the crowds today, but that's a feature of racing per se in all codes, and it's just a sorry thing, but that's history. Time moves on.
And we can always remember and be thankful for the fact that there is history involved, and we did witness some of the great history of harness racing.
Yeah, thanks be to God. I reckon I was really lucky to have seen some of the magic horses of harness racing. I've got great memories, and you know, Paleface and Hondo Grattan, Cocky Raider, just tremendous horses. And I was only a young bloke, and you aspired to have a horse of that quality. I never did, unfortunately, get a horse of that quality, but I had some nice horses along the way and had a hell of a lot of fun in those days. And in those days you could get a quid. It was there was money about, there was bookmakers, and 3 rings at Harold Park in those days, and it was enormous. If you thought your horse could win, you could get set, and there was no worries, and they'd ask you, would you like that bet again, son? Yeah, but it was great days.
John, thanks for sharing all those wonderful memories, having that little trip down memory lane, talking about in particular Harold Park and your career. Hopefully there's still a lot of wonderful memories ahead now that you've got back into harness, and hopefully there'll be more success.
Thanks very much, Michael. Yeah, been a privilege to be part of this industry, which I love so much, and it's just been a game changer for me and my family along the way. James had a lot of success. He had over 500 winners, and it's just been great for the family. Kept a family together, provided for a family, and it's just been all around just a great time for me. Thank you very much.